teaching it everything has to be appropriate for its function.
Thanks for coming our podcast. Today we're going to talk about how you want to think about our architectural technologies and what's in the future.
Well, I think, to me, the future is going to carry on being the same. We've been talking earlier about the fact that not that much has changed. Some of the techniques and obviously technology, computers, etc., has changed things. But I think one of the key things is that it's begun to become more and more important that architects and designers and city planners respect the existing structures of towns and buildings and don't just understand why a city is developed like it has and how buildings relate to each other and how people move around and so on, that they always respect that, because I think recycling of existing buildings, I've always believed in that being important anyway, because our major investment in construction is in the existing buildings. And if they are suitable to be adapted and recycled, they should be. I think it's a sustainable thing, which we're all supposed to be trying to do. So we should stop demolishing buildings unnecessarily. Obviously, when they're totally unsuitable or their structures have failed or whatever. But I think then maybe they can be removed. But other than that, we have to respect in the future, not only for financial reasons, but for environmental and sustainable reasons. And I think we get a better quality of environment if we can see the timeline of history of how things have developed. To me, that's extraordinarily important. So I would say that we have to, if there's anything that you can teach in that view, is that what is it? I mean, I've got an article here that I was out the other day somewhere where they'd made a wall material, a beautiful wall material, out of 6,400 cartons and things that you normally throw away to a tip. And people are taking some of these materials, rehashing them, recycling them, heating them or doing whatever. And I think that's the future, maybe. We've got to be more conscious of utilising what's existing and not just building new for its own sake. There will obviously have to be new buildings because populations are expanding and so on. And I don't think we should just be building little buildings, just expanding. We've got to be smarter with multi-storey, not massive buildings, but just be smarter. There's nothing new about this. Margaret Mead was talking about it many, many years ago very successfully, and how if you build a tall building, you have to have spaces around it and so on. And I think that's the future, is to respect the existing. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. Thank you for that.
What about the future of our training, Terry? What should we do to teach our young?
Well, that's a bit of a hard one. I think as I was talked about all along, is that nothing really changes. I think you still have to understand the fundamentals of good design, of proportions, of windows, spaces relating to the human scale, and then the actual detailing, so that the buildings are waterproof and that they are enduring as well. That there is some level of trying to minimizing the need for maintenance, or having just regular minimal maintenance, rather than having to replace things that are deteriorating unnecessarily. So it's appropriate material still, teaching it everything has to be appropriate for its function. I think that's the key to it in very simple terms.
But it's interesting that the future is actually going back to looking at some of the things we've done in the past, going back to looking at fundamental things like the foundations, proportions. When you looked at the old buildings, when you traveled Europe, you must have noticed that there were things like proportion and function that are still useful today.
Still relevant, because they used to have beautiful stones and materials, some of the textures, which we can't. That's a bit different. We not only not available, you can't afford it. It's very expensive. So we have simpler things, but the idea of proportions and the spaces still have to relate to the human scale and its function. And I think it's if you keep it simple, that way we don't lose anything by the new techniques and whatever. But so I think it's a hard one. Not a hard one. I think it's just the fact that in my view, nothing changes, even with all the new technologies. The basics still apply.
So one of the things that Ethan and I have started looking at is AI visualization, where you can start with a simple model. Yeah. You can type in some prompts and say, add some people, make it high quality, make it glassy, and it'll generate this design for you, which is totally impractical, but beautifully presented.
Yes, I obviously don't know much about AI, but I'm reading about it in principle. And as a lot of people say, it's scary. It's like anything that's misused. So obviously that's something that's going to become a real management skill for people eventually, that it doesn't get, as you say, so-called beautiful buildings, but they're not beautiful at all.
From a practical sense, one of the ways that I've seen some people use this AI is they actually generate the complete three-dimensional model of the building. They stand inside it, they generate a 3D view inside the building, and then they go to the visualizer and say, well, what would it look like if I had a timber ceiling? And boom, you've got a timber ceiling. And what would it look like if I had a timber floor and a white ceiling? And it would do this stuff very quickly. Whereas if we wanted to sketch it by hand, it would take us a lot longer. And even if we used our current rendering styles, it would take a long time to assign the materials, to set the lighting. And so from that point of view, I can see it as a real advantage with the client being able to test out alternatives really quickly.
Yes, well, even now, of course, we have programs where we can walk clients through their buildings, through their homes and whatever, take them into their lounge, through the front door. And we've had that technology for years. So it's only more sophisticated. But I do think, it still comes back. I look at some of the old hand drawing. I've still got them. We used to draw by hand with pencils and things. The quality of those drawings is superb compared to even the CAD ones, which are done by machines, basically. And so the AI is even more so, in my view. It loses that personality thing that we used to have, but it doesn't change the building, obviously, but the actual quality of the drawing. I've got some old drawings that I look at and I think, God, they look cool.
Well, good. One of my old friends, he used to work for the Ministry of Education, and he had watercolored elevations.
Oh yeah, of course. That was done a lot, even before my time even, but and some of them are beautiful. Tommy Bates here in New Plymouth did some great stuff, the Opera House. He did a lot of good buildings. He's a good architect, and he did coloured. I've got some of the original coloured drawings of his. They're pretty cool.
So, Terry, if we wanted to talk about the future of our training, what I get from you is that the future of our training is ensuring we build a foundation, a good foundation, and we also teach appropriateness, that things have to be appropriate to their site, to their context, to the city, to the materials. Yes,
and to the need, the actual understand what the brief is, if you like. It's it's having a very clear understanding of what the requirements are. And a lot of the time people jump in without doing that investigative stuff, which covers the whole thing, the site. What is the client? What is the building purpose? Spell it out. What are we trying to achieve? So you have a goal and then you build towards that and make it hopefully a beautiful building. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your time, Terry. I've really loved talking to you. I've learned quite a lot.
The timing's good because I've got to head off now. I hope that's been useful.
It's been really useful, Terry. Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay.
Really loved
Thank
it.
you so much,
Okay,
Terry.
cheers.
Goodbye.
See you again.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, that was really cool having Terry Boon on. I mean, he's got such a wealth of knowledge. It was incredible, I think, that he gave us his time.
Okay, yes, it's really nice, and he gave his knowledge and his history of how he has started, and we learned a lot from him.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. He's seen so many changes in the way that he's practiced. You know, you go back and he introduced the precast, and he's seen us move from pencils to pens to, you know, to the CAD to the BIM,
Yeah,
and now to AI, and he can see it as a
yeah,
tool rather
yeah,
than
yeah.
it's going
It's
to,
the
you know, of
tools.
course it's going to shake up the industry in the same way that CAD
Yeah,
and
yeah.
BIM has
It's
shaken up the industry.
Yeah, it's look like the changes every 10 years coming. A new thing is coming every 10 years. You know, that's what my observation is. Big changes for the BIM has been introduced widely in 2010, and now it's 2020s. AI has been introduced, and all the software are integrating, popular software integrating AI. So yeah, it's no stranger to persons, and even for us, new technology has been pop up, and people start talking about, okay, that's going to be game changers, and we're gonna lose our job. But I think it's just going to make our life more complicated, our design more complicated, and we will be. It's just a tools that we help us to handle complicated and better design. That's what I think about that.
Yeah, I think I've shared a link with you to Jonathan Reeves' introduction to the AI visualization. And the thing that I
Hmm.
took out of that was that it doesn't change the design of the space. So it doesn't, as Terry Boon was saying, you know, we've still got humans, we've still got human scale, we still have to worry about proportion of windows, the proportion of
Yeah.
rooms. So we still need to
Hmm.
worry about all of that stuff. And so when you watch the
Yes.
Jonathan Reeves movie, then what you see is you see him. He's formed the space. He's got the proportions. He's got the heights. He's got the windows where they're needed. But he's using the AI visualization to change things like the lighting, the materials, the
Hmm.
furniture.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
he's kind of using it as a tool to test out options rather
Yeah.
than as getting rid of him as the architect.
Yeah. So it's same like Revit. So AutoCAD help CAD help us to draw more efficiently and more complicated design. When BIMs came in, and it's helped us to control all the documentations, and and also was that the sustainability and building efficiency calculations. Now AI seems like it will help us to do because previously we've been talking about rendering and traditional way of computer aided renderings, and now AI is way efficient. It can done only within seconds. So maybe that means definitely it's allow us to more time to do rendering walks, because previously we need to take days or hours or days to get one good quality photos. Now it's like just in a few seconds we can get a better quality render photos, and that's one of it. And maybe a few weeks ago we also talked about the code checkings and etc. Maybe that's also another things we AI would look into it. Yeah, it's quite interesting. I think that's AI is a tool. It will not dominate us, the architect ability. Architect will still in the control, and yeah, it's just a tool, and we must in control. A human must be in control. A human must have the final say. That's what I think. And go back to Terry Boon. He also agrees in that ideas, and that's what he validates. He validates our ideas as well.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, it was so interesting to hear him talk about the history, the things he's seen, the things that have
Mhm.
changed, but also, most importantly, I think, the things that haven't changed. You know, we think that
Yeah.
architecture is completely different now than it was, But when
Mhm.
Terry looked back over 60 years of practice, there's things that he sees that are consistent. Detailing is consistent.
Yeah.
Materials
Yeah.
change, but principles don't. And so
Yeah.
I think he was really strong on making sure that you've got good principles, good proportions, good principles, designing to the human body, the human
Mhm.
size.
Yeah.
And they haven't changed.
Yeah. He specifically says that human body doesn't change. So that's,
Mm.
buildings interact with human. So it's really, he also said we need to stick to the fundamental. That's also very, very important. And also detailings. We need to understand the detailings of how the things works. Otherwise, we can't design as
Mm.
well. So yeah, it is.
It was interesting. He didn't
Which
disagree with
part?
what you and I have talked about.
Yeah, it is.
Well, I really
He's-
appreciate you setting that up and
Mhm.
getting Terry to join the podcast.
Mhm.
It was fantastic. Thanks very much, Ethan.
All right. Thank you, Jonathan. Bye.
And a big thank you to Terry if he listens.
Yeah. Thank you, Terry Boon. Thank you. Thanks for your contribution to architecture.